Welcome to the Living Unconventionally podcast. My name is Chris Piak. Welcome to the Living Unconventionally podcast. My name is Chris Piak. I'm your host for today. Sorry, we are a minute or two late. And I just realized I have to say all of this again because we are recording this session, of course, for our podcast episode on Monday as well. And I forgot to start the recording device. Welcome to the Living Unconventionally podcast. My name is Chris Piak. I'm your host, and today we have a very special and exciting episode of the podcast for you. With me today is Merilin Lukk from the Estonian government, the Startup Estonia initiatives. Welcome, Merilin.
Hi, hey everyone.
Merilin, it's so great that you join us here today to tell us a little bit how entrepreneurs, digital nomads can move into the European Union, into Estonia, start a business here, and also build a new life in the European Union.
Yes, sure. Thanks for having me.
Merilin, can you tell us a little bit first about your organization? Is it a private organization? Is it a government organization? What do you do? And why should digital nomads especially care about you?
So I am the Startup Visa project lead in Startup Estonia, which is a governmental program under the operations and dealings under the Ministry of Economics and Infrastructure in Estonia. And the main thing that Startup Estonia is promoting is to have more startups. And we do it in a way that we have 3 main pillars, or even 4 main pillars, but one of them is to have more startups. So this is kind of the umbrella. And under that, we try to build better legislation that would be supportive for entrepreneurs, mostly for startup entrepreneurs, but through that, we actually create a better environment to all entrepreneurs. Then to look that we have enough funding available for startups, and then that we have a very and good startup ecosystem. So we have around 90 to 100 startup community organizations, accelerators, co-working places, VC funds. So yeah, we try to develop all of these pillars basically.
Mm-hmm. And what kind of industries are you especially interested in when you think about startups?
Mm-hmm. So the term startup has a very different meaning in a lot of countries. So in Estonia, we see that a startup is a tech-based company that is scalable, has global growth potential and fast global growth potential, and has an innovative business model. So as restaurants and regular businesses can be starting businesses, they're not startups under the Estonian law. So we have it defined in the law as well.
Mm-hmm. So does this apply only to IT companies, to online shopping, or would this also cover companies, for example, who deal with pharmaceuticals, new medicaments, biotech?
We are very sector agnostic. We welcome startups from any sector, and as I said, only if it's a product or a business or a service that has a tech ingredient in it and is scalable, then it's a startup in our sense. And we've seen, for example, agri-tech, also biotech and medtech. So any sector is fine. Usually what we see that software as a service companies in Estonia are the most successful, but also we see that hardware can be a very successful startup if it has this software component.
Mm-hmm. Estonia, for those of you who are still searching their mental map, you know one product from Estonia for sure, that's Skype.
Yes.
And tell us a little bit, we move on to, by the way, if you want to ask questions to Merilin about startups in Estonia, this is recorded live, so feel free to use the question button at the bottom of the screen to ask your questions. I will ignore every question in the chat because it's too difficult to follow that. But there's a button where you can ask a question, and these questions we will answer at the end of the interview. Feel free to ask your questions now, but the most common questions we will already answer in this interview, of course. So first question is, where's Estonia?
Where is Estonia? So Estonia, on a larger scale, it's in Europe. It's in the European Union since 2004. It's in the northern part of Europe. I like to call it the northeastern part. I know that a lot of Estonians would like to get away from the term Eastern European. I am personally very proud of it. But yeah, we're in the northeast edge of Europe. Our neighbors are Finland from the north and Russia from the east. And then there's the Baltic Sea, which connects us to Sweden, Denmark even, and yeah, it's this region. So if you know where Scandinavia is, you're pretty close to where Estonia is.
Exactly. So you would not be completely off if you have images of Pippi Longstock, little wooden houses, lots of forest, blue sky, endless beaches. That's
true, yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
And as you said, it's part of the European Union, which is, of course, a great bone for startups everywhere.
Yes, it's yeah, I think European Union, for any company that comes outside of the European Union, a good and smooth intro to European Union is very important for these companies.
Mm-hmm. Let me ask you, you deal with a lot of inquiries about startup visas for Estonia, of course. What is the most common question that people ask you?
How can I apply?
And what would be the answer to that question?
So it's a two-step way. First of all, any company that wants to bring its founders or employees to Estonia, also an Estonian company who wants to bring employees outside of the EU, they have to have the startup status. So the startup status is something that you can apply for at startupestonia.ee/visa.
Okay.
And
can you repeat it one more time?
Yes, startupestonia.ee/visa.
Mm-hmm.
So there is a link to the application link for the startup status. You fill it up. It's very similar to anything you can find when you're applying to an accelerator or an investor. It's quite lengthy, but it's also very informative. Then when you apply for that, or let's just put it this way, the startup committee that consists of 7 Estonian startup community organizations. We have representatives that assess the application. So there are people who know startups by heart, and they're very important in the startup ecosystem. And then if it gets 4 yeses out of 7 votes, then they have the startup status. And then the founders and employees can go to their nearest Estonian embassy, or they can come to Estonia and apply for the visa or the temporary residence permit in Estonia. And what is really important to know is that the startup status gives you eligibility to apply for actually 2 things. One is the D visa, which is for 1 year, and you can extend it for another 6 months. But if the founder already has the company registered, then they can apply for the temporary residence permit, also the employees, which is for 5 years. Mm-hmm. So it's probably one of the most long-term residence permits under the startup visa term in the world. So usually they're for 2-3 years in most countries, but yeah, in Estonia it's for 5 years maximum. And then afterwards you can apply for another residence permit, which is for 10 years already.
That's awesome. But you know what I personally find even more inspiring than that the visa can be so long is that the process by which you decide if you get a visa is something that actually makes sense. Because, you know, in most countries, you would be evaluated on a number of formal criteria. no matter if they have any relation to reality or not. And you actually ask people who know about these things to say, hey, is this idea valid?
Because we are a very small community, we're a very successful startup community, and we want to see the success to be sustainable and go on as well. So the startup visa in general was developed in these those committee members that are right now assessing these. So they are successful startup
Merilin, I'm sorry, I think this got lost. Could you repeat, please?
Oh, of course. So yes, what I was saying is that the startup visa in Estonia is developed together with the startup founders and the government. So on every step of the way, the startup founders had their say in it. So we are a very small community, but yes, we want to see that it all continues. So we want to see, or the people who assess it want to see that we offer to the startup something as well. So we don't want to only bring in startups, but we want to actually make them succeed. So if the committee sees that Estonia might not be the best place for a startup, we might actually say no, because and we would say that maybe you should try something else, or this country or this community.
Mm-hmm. How tough are these criteria? You said already, okay, that must be something that people can see growing very fast, can grow on a worldwide scheme. So world domination comes very natural to a German guy. So I have a terrible sense of humor.
So yeah, the criteria actually, the only thing that you need is to have a startup status. But for the startup status, you have to be out of the idea stage, definitely. It can even be a great idea on paper, but if it's only an idea, you have to work on it a little bit more. You have to have at least a prototype or an MVP to prove us. Any accomplishment would be good, whether or not you've been in an accelerator, you have your first investors, first employees even, definitely first customers would be good to show. We don't require any proof of revenue or investments, but it's always good to have something. So what I usually say is that don't come with an idea. Have something to show us and something to prove us.
Yeah, always a good recommendation. By the way, also if you look for a regular job, you know, when people ask you, we come to a foreign country, how will you manage without speaking the local language? One answer I get regular is, I will figure it out or so. If you want to get a job, that's not good enough. You know, you have to be able to actually explain how you will do this. Yeah. So let's make this practical. Let's take, for example, my company. As it happens, I have an Estonian company. I have worldwide clients from all over the world, but I'm a one-man organization. No? I hire freelancers for everything that I need. I have one person. I assist international professionals in finding jobs in the European Union, especially in Germany, do coaching. Coaching is not traditionally some tech company. Would that qualify or would that not qualify? I mean, I don't need a visa because I'm a European Union citizen, but let's say I come from the United States, from South Africa, from India or somewhere else.
So if it's a regular service provider, meaning you do one-on-one consultancies or these kinds of things, then yes, it's not really scalable. But if you put it in a video format and you can sell it repeatedly, this one product, then that's already a scalable product.
Okay.
So building some kind of a software solution behind any business, and making it profitable and repeatedly and with 100% plus year growth, then I don't see why it couldn't be a startup.
Mm-hmm.
So
how could I prove that I have 100% growth? I mean, it's a future projection then.
Yes. So in the startup world, we love our terms like ARR and MRR. So monthly returning revenue, annual returning revenue. All of these statistics and numbers are always good to show, especially for a very early stage startup.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Good.
So even if whether it's in revenue, whether it's in customer base, anything works actually.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So something that helps you to evaluate the potential of the startup based on actual numbers. Okay.
Exactly. And with for startups, even for early stage startups who have been dealing with accelerators or with early investments, they all know that. So they also know what kind of numbers are have to be proven to the investors. So whenever there's I can already see it from an application, whether or not even an early stage company has dealt with investors or accelerators. They always show those numbers.
Okay, great. So now we take the second step. There is a company already has startup status, and now they want to grow and they want to hire talent from outside of the European Union, or maybe they have to hire talent from outside of the European Union because labor market is empty. You know,
Mm-hmm.
How difficult is that? Because in Germany, it's pretty difficult.
With under the startup status and with the startup visa, it's very easy. A company who has the startup status has the company already registered in Estonia as the OÜ. They have to either register the person that they have hired. They have to register their employment in an e-platform, which Estonia is famous for. We have e-platforms for every single thing. So for an employer, it's quite easy. They just have to prove that the person is working for them, and then the person will go to an embassy or come to Estonia to apply for the visa or the temporary residence permit.
So I would hire this person before they have a visa.
Yes. It's always good to show that because that gives more proof to the border guard and the embassy that this person is in contact with the company. There is a direct connection to that. So basically that helps speed up the process as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So obviously the person needs to have a work contract. Is there some kind of minimum salary they need to?
For a startup, with the startup visa, some very good things are that it is we don't have a salary requirement for the people who work at a startup, because with startups you can't always provide a big salary, but you can offer other benefits like options or any other things that make it worthwhile to work there at a very early stage. Then the other thing is that Estonia's immigration quota is very low. So for that reason, the startup visa applicants are exempt from the quota, because the startup sector needs a lot of talent to come on board. So it's a very speedy process, and it's a quite comfortable process.
Mm-hmm. In your experience, talking about speed, from the moment that an employer decided, okay, I hire this person,
mm-hmm.
To the moment that this person actually can start working and living in Estonia, what is the typical time frame, like a median?
So if the company also has to get the startup status, then it's 10 working days usually 10 working days to get the startup status. Then after that, it's 1 month usually for the visa maximum. And it may take up to 2 months for the temporary residence permit.
Wow. But in Germany, I'm sorry to my listeners. Most of our listeners, they are in the United States and Canada. Forgive me for bringing many examples from Germany, but in Germany, that's the time when you will get an appointment to make an appointment.
Yeah, in Estonia, it's a bit better. Of course, Estonia is a very small country, and we don't have that many embassies around the world. So we have roughly about 20 embassies that deal with those types of visas, working visas and temporary residence permits. But at the same time, for a lot of countries, it's easy to come to Estonia, for example, with the Schengen Visa for 90 days. And all of those processes can be handled within that time.
Uh-huh.
So
you are allowed to come on a Schengen visa to Estonia, apply here, and then stay?
Yes. Because for some countries it's difficult to, it doesn't make sense maybe to go fly all across the world to another embassy, or it would make sense to just come here and do the things here. And also for some countries that don't allow the 90 days to come to Estonia, if they have employers, for example, they can invite them and make it easier for them to apply to everything in Estonia and to start settling in.
Well, it doesn't happen very often that I'm speechless, but right now I am speechless because I have been dealing with helping international professionals get into jobs in Germany for a long time, since 2011. And you have no idea how difficult they make it on every step, even though the formal criteria for blue card are very simple, But the bureaucracy behind it is just a nightmare. And this Estonia sounds like a dream. I will be very honest here.
I think Estonia is just, we know that we don't have the luxury to make it difficult for people. We need those people to come here and help our economy. So, and especially for startups, we want to have them here. So we try to make it as simple and smooth for them to really thrive here.
Awesome. Just to be clear, 2 questions for my own clarification. Number one, in the second part, we talked about people who are not shareholders in the company. They are just employees.
Yeah.
And number 2, I forgot. It's the age coming. Tell me what is, we talked about the most common question that you get. Mm-hmm. What is one question that people never ask you and you wished they would because it's really important?
I bet I will come up with a question afterwards, but I think one of the things that I would want to talk more is our connections around the world, with the Estonian startup community connections in Europe, in the States. I mean, we have so many founders who have really close ties to the main investors and accelerators in Silicon Valley, in London. So I think these are some of the things that I rarely get to talk about in detail, but they're really interesting because we have a couple of startups who have been to 500 startups. We have people who want to give back and to talk about this experience and why Combinator and having that value.
Is there someone who impresses you especially?
I think lately, if you've heard of Veriff, it's a quite successful Estonian startup. They received a 7.7 million investment last year, and they actually were in Y Combinator. And the guy who's the CEO of it, if I'm not mistaken, is 24 years old.
Okay.
And they're just.
He could be prime minister in Estonia. You have a lot of ministers in that age.
Oh yeah, that's true. But yeah, I think well, we have a lot of young people who have actually made it really far already. So I think that is also a very interesting experience that can be shared. That you don't have to wait until you're, I don't know, 45 or 40 and having worked at a big corporation for 10 years. You can actually, if you have an idea and you're young, just go ahead and try it out. We have the mentors here. We have people who have that experience that you can actually use in developing your own startup. So I think it's really difficult to talk about it because rarely people believe it, because in big ecosystems like London, Silicon Valley, New York, it's really difficult to get up and close with successful startup founders. But in Estonia, it's so easy because I think Kaarel Kotkas, who's the CEO of Veriff, he was the one who actually said that it has been so good to learn from the best, like from people who built Taxify, Skype, TransferWise, and now they want to give that to the new startups as well. So it's kind of this ongoing cycle all the time, which is very, very exciting in Estonia. And I haven't seen it on that scale somewhere else.
Yeah, and what I personally like also is that you can really approach everybody as long as you are a little bit generous and decent and smart in how you do this, and you understand that that people's time is limited. They are very willing to talk with you. if you're not asking any stupid questions like, "Oh, do you have a job?"
Even stupid questions are okay, but these people, they are very willing to give you their time, but they also expect a good level of professionalism and this kind of go-to attitude. Estonians don't like excuses when doing something. You either do it and try everything that you can, or you just maybe don't do it.
Exactly. And also, what I experience over and over again is it also, if you come with an attitude of entitlement, then don't expect anybody to help you, you know.
Yeah, I can honestly say and be quite brutal maybe about it that Estonians really don't like that. Because I mean, we 27 or 28 years ago when we gained our independence, we had to do everything from scratch, and we didn't have that entitlement. And I think it's still to this day we kind of in the startup community, especially, anyone can do anything. And if you look for excuses or you look for people doing things for you, I don't think it's seen as a very good trait in anyone.
What was the most inspiring experience that you had from two people coming together?
I think under the startup visa sense, I think there's this guy, Avery Schrader. I hope he's watching. If not, then damn. But anyway, yeah, Avery is this guy from Canada who just came to study in Estonia and then quit school, started working on his own startup, and now is kind of being mentored by Ragnar Sass, who is one of the co-founders of Pipedrive. And they generated their first investment last year, and within 1 year, even less, within 10 months, because I know that he received his startup visa in April. So within this 10 months, he's a very successful person in the community. He's doing interviews with all kinds of successful startup founders. You can actually look him up on Liftoff, Lift 99, which is an Estonian co-working space. They do these series of events. And it's really cool to see that Estonian startup ecosystem is very welcoming, and we don't only welcome people who are really close to us, like for example Latvians, Finnish, Swedish people, but we're really open to anyone from anywhere in the world.
And plus, literally everybody speaks English.
Yeah. I mean, Estonian is a beautiful language, and I know that you speak it very well. And I love talking in Estonian, but the reality is only less than 1 million people in the world speak it. So we have to speak other languages as well if we want to make it in the international arena. So yes, in the startup community, everyone speaks English.
Yeah, in the startup community, but also outside, you know. Yeah. I've been living in Estonia for 5 years, and even school children, they are about 10, 11 years old, they speak like Oxford level English with you, and they correct your grammar if you're not correct. It's really, really wonderful. Yeah. Great. I will go to the questions now. If you are listening live and you want to ask a question, there's a button at the bottom of this screen. That button is labeled Ask a Question. Guess what that's for? It's for you to ask a question. Put your questions there. I will answer them in the order that they are most voted on. You can vote on questions as well. If you're listening to the podcast, to the recording, then you can not ask a question because we are not there anymore. So let's go. First question that came here is it possible to apply for residency in Estonia even you already have residency of another EU country?
Well, with residency, the point is to reside in that country. So it's not impossible, but it doesn't make that much sense. Because the rule is that even with the D visa or the temporary residence permit, you should spend around 51% of the time in that country. Otherwise, you're using it not purposefully. Let's just put it this way. So you can do it, but it just doesn't make any sense.
I assume the background of that question is that many countries limit your visa to employed work. And if you now want to start your own company, then you will lose the residency in the original EU country.
I mean, if you come to Estonia as a founder of a company, you're still allowed to work. But when we want to know what you're doing with your company, you should still prove that you're still working on it. But it is flexible enough so you can actually make money in order to develop your company. But yeah, it's really important to reside are mainly and developing your startup.
I'm sorry, could you repeat the last question answer because it got lost?
Yeah. So the main thing that if we want to check on you, and at one point people will check from the government, it is important to show that you reside in the country mainly, like 55%, 51% of the time, and to show that you're still developing your startup and you are a part of the Estonian startup community.
Great. Next question comes from Uday. Do you review the applications for startup status throughout the year?
Yes. Okay. It is open throughout the year. Even on Christmas, even on national holidays, it is open. We don't have a time frame where we don't do it. So yes, you can apply at any time.
Awesome.
But just be aware that when we have national holidays, people try to not work, although they sometimes do. But yeah, just it usually takes 2 weeks for us to review it. So.
Wonderful. Viral has the next question. What kind of startups, specialized one, are now required in Estonia?
Startup specialists?
Yeah.
Or
I think he's asking about industries.
Oh, so as I said, we're quite sector agnostic. I think we have the best, or the way we see it is we want to give back to the startup as well. So I think software as a service is the most common and the most successful business model and sector in Estonia. Also, we have a space tech accelerator, or the European Space Agency's business center in Tartu. So there are some specialized areas also. Agri-tech is coming. Productivity tools, Pipedrive, Toggle. Then HR tools, Sabbatical, which is the next Q&A that you're gonna do.
Yeah, in about half an hour.
But yeah, what unites them all is software as a service. We also have very good fintech startups. So TransferWise, one of the unicorns, is one of them. And then Moniz, on their way to probably becoming a unicorn. And then Taxify is from transportation. So software, I would say.
Okay. So next question from Edison Ray. How is the scope of information technology field or software companies in Estonia? How many renowned established companies in IT are there?
So we still have Skype development part here. We have Microsoft here. Then there are some service providers like Moon Cascade. Then
TransferWise, you mentioned.
Oh, TransferWise is very big offices are in Estonia. Also Taxify. So there's a lot of software companies and also software service companies. So Nortal is one of the biggest just software services. It's not a startup, but they do employ a lot of people and they offer service development or IT development around the world. So there's a lot of IT technology companies in Estonia.
Great. So let's go on. Jose Manuel Ojeda, what about if the business model is a normal business model? I have an Estonian company and we create software. Our business model is a traditional licensing model. Will that business model qualify?
So it depends on if you have a product or your software is a product, then yes, it could be. But if your business model is providing services and building software to companies and kind of doing it under their rules and not providing one service which is scalable, so basically a consulting company, then this is not a startup. But maybe maybe I don't understand what the question is exactly, but the traditional licensing model is okay until it sells well. I guess.
Good. Next question, I think that might be a misunderstanding. Khalid asked, what is the difference between a startup visa and a digital nomad visa?
So that is a very interesting topic. And I really understand the question because they can be seen as similar things. So the startup visa is only for startups, strictly for startups, but digital nomad visa.
There really is such a thing.
There might be. It's in the plans. We have an election coming up this weekend, so we have the basically the document where the law is written down. It's ready, but it has to go in front of the parliament. So hopefully this year we will launch it. But it's for people who just want to travel around the world and make it easier for them to legally come and open their laptop and work in Estonia. So actually a lot of people don't know, but it's illegal to go somewhere as a tourist and open your laptop and answer your work emails, actually. It may seem like a small issue, but I think it's something that shows that Estonia is trying to legislate the new working forms as well. So I think this is something that will lead us towards that.
Oh, okay, good. Thank you.
But yeah, keep posted. Look on all of our websites, and definitely Jobbatical is one of the companies that is trying to push that digital nomad visa as well. So you might want to listen to the next podcast as well, or the thing that's coming right up in 20 minutes, right?
Exactly. And if you're listening this in the recording, next Monday comes this episode. So Merilin, always good advice to listen to the Living Unconventionally podcast. Question from my side about digital nomad visas. What time frame would it be valid? Is that known already?
I think, if I'm not mistaken, then up to a year, but I might be mistaken. But I think it's very similar to the time frame that the startup visa, the D visa, offers. But you will not be eligible to get the temporary residence permit.
Sure, great. Next question from Shreya Mahendru. At what stage does it make sense to apply for the startup visa? After registration of the company itself, or after some revenue has been established?
First of all, thank you so much for that question. Actually, this is one of the questions I wish more people asked. So, as I said, idea stage is directly, like, straight on assessed as no. You don't get the startup status. But basically, if you have a prototype ready, if you have the first customers, that's a very good start. Also, if you, for example, had the first maybe even minimal investment from anyone, just show us something that it's working. If it's an idea on paper, that will not go.
Okay, thank you, Shreya. Evelina has the next question. By the way, I love it that we have a lot of female interest as well.
I love it too, by the way.
Yeah.
It's very.
Evelina asked, does Startup Estonia give permanent residence in Estonia? What does Startup need for it?
So Startup Estonia is actually just handling the startup status process. But under that, you are eligible for the temporary residence. For permanent residence in Estonia, you should do the language exam and other exams. But yes, you can have a temporary residence permit for 5 years, and after that ends, you can apply for 10 years temporary residence permit. But yeah, the startup just needs the startup status for it, to be honest.
Sure. So from Marcel comes a question, which is, what is the percentage of Asians and Africans that have applied?
Roughly. I will not say the exact percentage. One of the top countries that have applied is India and Pakistan. You should maybe check. We around 1 month ago, we published the 2-year anniversary post about the startup visa. So there is a map where you can see where the most applications come. It's startupestonia.ee/blog. But I think in 2018, for example, from India, there were 100 startups. So that's a very high number, because altogether we had 754 applications last year. So I'm not going to say the exact or even rough number, but you can definitely go to our blog and see it for yourself and compare the numbers.
Very useful question also for Marcel. I applied before and was rejected. Can I reapply?
Yes, you can. Don't apply with the exact same application. Do it. You can ask for our questions. You can ask from us what went wrong, or just develop the product even more and reply again. But it's totally fine to reapply with this, even the same company. Just look through what were the reasons maybe you were rejected.
Okay. Nyalem asked, starting a medical laboratory, does this fall into the startup category?
Again, if it has some kind of a scalable software behind it that you can sell, maybe. You would have to go through the startup status application. Just a medical laboratory where you just test out medical or like pharmaceuticals or anything, that is not a startup.
Great. Santosh asks, what kind of government support is available for startups in terms of finance, visa, employment for foreign nationals?
So the government, what Estonia is not doing is we don't give direct financial support to the startups, because we don't think that the government money is the smartest money for them. But we have supported opening VC funds. So Super Angel VC fund is one of them that Startup Estonia has supported. Then there's Visa and international talent help from the International House that was just opened in Estonia. Then, of course, the city government helps, and all of the different institutions offer their help. So, but for migration issues, we have wonderful migration advisors working in our border guard board. So yes, I think they're one of the first people you should talk to when wanting to come to Estonia. And then when it comes to financial support or even financial investments, there are a lot of accelerators and incubators and VC funds that offer that.
The next question is, I assume someone has a good sense of humor. That's I will ask the question because it's funny, actually.
Yeah.
Someone has a beauty service and offers haircut, makeup, and hairdressing in the comfort of people's home. Can they apply for a startup visa?
So if you only have a beauty salon, then no, it's not a startup. But I see that there's an app that connects users with service providers using a map. That can be a startup. But just yourself going to people's houses and booking appointments through an app for yourself, that is not a scalable startup. And to be very frank,
and I might add that I have a feeling that has been done before. Yes. It's not a startup.
Also, just a secret: no startup idea is original. It's always been done. Just make it very special and find your own edge.
Great. I think we take 3 more questions and then we wrap it up for today, because in about 15 minutes from now, we have our next live Q&A with Jobatical. Maria Lump is coming to us and talks about professional remote jobs, meaning
everyone listening right now, please listen to that as well. That will be very interesting. I will be listening.
Yeah, and it will be an awesome opportunity if you really dream about living location independently, because these are really professional jobs, full-time jobs where you can live wherever you want. So it will be really exciting. Join that call as well. The email goes out in this moment, and also if you're registered to Crowdcast, you should see it in my channel. And if you listen to this in the recording, then wait till next Monday and you will get this episode into your podcast. So 3 more questions and then we're done. Serhat asks, are there anything like incubators with some benefits such as lower rental fee or accelerators to make it easy until you make a profit?
Lower rental fee, maybe rental for office space. So you should check out maybe Startup Wise Guys. That is an accelerator that provides very early investments. I would say that we have a very good ecosystem page under Startup Estonia webpage. I know that Sander is listening and offering those links here. Maybe he can put the Estonian startup ecosystem link here as well, where we have those accelerators listed, and you can see what suits you the best. So right now, only one that comes to my mind that is really having programs right now is Startup Wise Guys, but we have a lot more accelerators and also investment funds with those kinds of programs. So yes, thank you, Sander. So yeah, startupestonia.ee/startup-ecosystem, overview of the Estonian startup ecosystem.
Great. 2 more questions from Thailand. People are not just founders or employees, they're also human beings. So they also have a private life. So Thailand asks, I have a wife and a kid. Does the startup visa or the temporary residence include my family members?
Yes, it does. So you can bring your spouse and an underage children with you under the same one.
Wonderful. Are they allowed to work?
Yes.
Very good. Is there a difference between, sorry, a follow-up question. Is there a difference for the spouses or children if they are grown up? Is there a difference between, are they allowed only to work employed or can they work employed, self-employed, whatever they want?
Any type of employment is okay. They can open up their own company and offer services under that. They are allowed to work under the same terms as their spouses who have received the startup visa directly and as a startup. So,
you know, this is so frightening because it makes so much sense for someone used to German bureaucracy. That is
yeah,
very, very distracting.
We know that we're a very small country and we have to have some kind of competitive edge next to those big countries that attract the talent anyway, like Germany, France, England. So we try to just stand out some way. And
yeah, England, good question. Out of curiosity, does the Brexit have any effect on your business that you see people who were planning to move to the UK now look for alternatives?
Yes and no. We don't see that many people coming from UK right now. I don't know if some people have decided to come to Estonia because of Brexit, but for example, TransferWise's headquarters is in London, so I think they actually are opening an office in Brussels now. So I think a lot of our companies that have been in London are looking at other places in Europe. And also, I think there's a lot of talent available in the UK, so we're kind of looking into that and maybe offering them the information about Estonia as a place to be inside of Europe.
Merilin Lukk was this from Startup Estonia, from the Estonian government, talking about startup visas in Estonia. My heart is singing. I nearly am sad that I don't need any visas because I'm a European Union citizen.
Yeah. Although Although one of the very interesting things about the Estonian startup visa is that we've been having some European Union companies that relocate to Estonia, get the startup status, and bring co-founders from outside of EU and employees. So not a lot, but it's an interesting thing that we're seeing.
Yeah, great. Merilin Lukk, thank you very much for joining us today in the Living Unconventionally podcast. My name is Chris Piak. I'm the host. If you enjoyed this episodes, if you want to hear more stories that can help you live a digital lifestyle where you travel the world and chase your passions around the world, or if you simply want to hear more stories of wonderful people who are brave and who dare to live an unconventional lifestyle and the experiences and adventures that they had, subscribe to our podcast, livingunconventionally.com. And we hear each other again next Monday when we talk with Maria Lamp from Jobatical, and she will tell us about actual job opportunities to work remotely and professionally wherever you want. Thank you, and we hear each other next week. Wonderful.